Bringing attention to the destruction of the 3 World Trade Center towers in New York City on September 11th, 2001, and a whole lot more. This is 9/11 Free Fall. Hi everyone, this is Andy Steele. Thanks for tuning in, and I'm happy to be joined for this week's episode by Kelly David. She's one of the outstanding activists with AE 9/11 Truth. And in the talk that I'll be playing, we discuss a number of things, including the year that's passed and the year that's coming up, and what's going to spell victory for the 9/11 Truth movement. This is a special pre-Christmas 9/11 Free Fall episode, so ho ho ho! Stay tuned to hear it. So like I said, it's almost Christmas. I hope everyone has a safe and happy one coming up. It's actually 2 degrees outside right now in upstate New York as I record this segment, so keep warm if you are in one of the snowy states, especially this one. But in some Christmas related news, AE 9/11 Truth has a link up on its site to its Amazon affiliate page, and if you're an Amazon shopper, this is the easiest way to support the cause without doing hardly anything different or spending any extra money. Alright, you just click the Amazon link on ae911truth.org, and that takes you to amazon.com to do your shopping. Simple as that. And Amazon knows that you arrive to its site from AE 9/11 Truth when you do this, and in return, AE 9/11 Truth gets a tiny commission of what you bought. And contrary to some concerns some people have raised on Facebook, this is just part of an affiliate program that any website can sign up for, including you, the listener, if you have a website. Alright, you just apply online, make your widgets for your page, and hopefully your supporters who shop Amazon remember to go there first when they do their Amazon shopping. And there's lots of alternative news sites that utilize this program to raise money, and AE 9/11 Truth, of course, reports on the news, but also reaches out and practices real activism behind the scenes, getting the message out there to more and more people, just like it's done for years. So remember that for all of your last-minute shopping. In other news, the latest compilation video of C-SPAN calls is up at 911freefall.com and at 911blogger. This is part 5 in the series, and this one is the longest by far. It's around 30 minutes long. And just like in all the other videos, you can watch your favorite politicians and pundits squirm and slither away from the evidence. With the exception, of course, of Charles Dent and Diana DeGette and Stephanie Santa Castro, all of those individuals gave good answers when they were asked about the evidence on that program. And if your family is open to discussing the truth about 9/11 and the controlled demolition of the Twin Towers in Building 7, these videos in this series make good focal points for dinner time discussion on Christmas Eve. And of course, they're entertaining. And I didn't really do anything in the video except show these C-SPAN guests, these Washington Journal guests, speaking in their own words. And of course, if this didn't involve the death of nearly 3,000 people on 9/11 and the millions of lives that were lost in the wars afterwards, it would almost be funny to see how a lot of these guests on Washington Journal are either ignorant of 9/11, the facts of 9/11, and how clumsily they run from this issue even if they do know about it. And of course, this is no laughing matter because people did die and continue to as a result of 9/11. And it just cements the fact that these so-called quote-unquote officials are really no different than you or me. Alright, there's bad ones and there's good ones. There's people worrying about their careers amidst all of this. There's a lot of them who feel their hands are tied by the system, so they reason that it's better to not make waves. And there's others who wouldn't even care if whoever rigged Building 7 to fall confessed the whole crime to them and handed them a video of themselves doing it. Alright, deep down, these are just people. And while it's empowering to remember that, that doesn't mean you let up on them. Alright, you got to keep punching, keep confronting them with the evidence whenever you can. Finally, I want to read an op-ed penned by a Vietnam War veteran and published on December 15th in the Times-Standard. Times-Standard appears to be a news service out of Humboldt County, California, and that county includes the city of Eureka. And this is a short piece, so I'm going to read the whole thing. The title is Honor Vietnam Vets, Prevent Wars. And it reads, I read your article on the soldiers who lost their lives in Vietnam. And I just thought you might want to hear from a soldier who survived NAM and has a message for the country about how to prevent these tragedies. Some of the soldiers who managed to come back had horrible memories, PTSD, and worse. Some had messages to share to prevent future wars with countries that never threatened or attacked the U.S. You see, some start wars for oil or other reasons, greed and power. They are called neocons. So I wouldn't assume all soldiers die to protect America or make it safer. They just get used for quote-unquote empire. When they were going to call one war Operation Iraqi Liberation, someone pointed out that that would spell oil. And I believe Afghanistan did not attack us on 9/11/01, and our efforts really haven't made us safer. But you never publish my letters when I air my views on 9/11, so you really do keep the idea that war keeps us safer. When these wars of late only cause more of the third world to hate the U.S., if you want to wake up, start here. And he lists the webpage www.ae911truth.org. When I took the oath to defend the country, I didn't know the media would do the bidding of the military-industrial complex. But that's what you do, isn't it? And it's signed George Kirkpatrick of Fieldbrook. So George doesn't hold back in this letter, and it seems to pay off because they published it. And this shows that you can't be afraid of speaking your mind and challenging those in the media. Obviously, you want to show some tact, but don't be afraid of holding a mirror in front of the system's face. All right, you just got to be yourself, be sincere, and be truthful, and people will listen to you. Okay, I want to just talk very quickly about the holiday season. It's Christmas, and I've commented on this show before that I'm not really a big fan of Christmas. It's not that I have anything against the holiday itself. It's just the shopping, the materialism, and I've had my fill of it. It doesn't do anything for me. But that doesn't mean I don't find some kind of meaning in the holiday. All right? It's just that I see it in a different way. Now, what's this have to do with 9/11? Well, it has a lot to do with it, because we talk every week about not just the evidence, not just the activities that are being done by the various people around the world who are trying to wake up the public to this reality, but we talk about keeping ourselves in the fight, keeping our spirit in the fight. And in this talk with Kelly David that I'm going to play in a few minutes on this show, we discuss a lot of that too. What you need to do within yourself. And I've said it before on the show, and I'll say it again right now. If I serve as no other purpose, other than as a historical documentarian of what happened in the movement at this time period in history, of what everybody did, I also want to serve the purpose of being that voice, that cheerleader that people sometimes need to help them keep on going. Because that's what we need. That's what a lot of us need. That's why the internet is such a miracle, because it allows like-minded people to come together. It allows people who are awake to this reality to come together and not just compare notes, not to just help each other with activist activities, but also to back each other up. And so I want to talk quickly about my meaning of Christmas, how I see it. And this is based on the mythology of myself, things I just have observed. And you notice that in wintertime, as we head into this season, it gets darker earlier. We set the clocks back, but because of what's going on astronomically, the sun is not up as high. All right, we're in darkness for a longer period of time. And then at around December 21st, on December 21st, the sun is at its lowest point in the sky. All right, so it is a period of darkness that we are in winter. And if you think about winter, if you live in a snowy area, but not even just then, but symbolically, winter is a time of desolation. It's representative of old age, of being at the end of a cycle, a time of death. And that sounds morbid, that sounds depressing, but it's the truth. All right, the leaves fall off the trees, the sky is murky, everything becomes more drab. So you live in darkness during this time. And what I see the holiday as being I see it as being a celebration in that darkness, as a celebration of hope. And I like to think that at some point in history, regardless of the religious stuff, not getting into it on the show, people talk about them celebrating on December 25th, even before the whole Christianity took the world by storm. But at the holidays' origins, even before it was called Christmas, that some primitive people in that darkness, in that desolation, in that coldness, decided to lighten up their life, decided to do something, to decorate something, to have a celebration, to know that the warmer seasons are going to come back. Life is going to come back at some point. That this current situation will not be the situation forever. That it's dark now, but light is going to return. Life will return. The cycle will renew. Now, I'm getting a little bit more philosophical than I do usually on this show. I'm affording myself that luxury this week. But I hope this puts out a message to everybody, is to know that even though things seem dark now, I see hope. I see hope, but some people are more pessimistic. Some people see the establishment failing them. They may lose their heart. They may think, why bother? That says somewhere in the Bible, I'm not an expert, this is not a religious show, but it says somewhere, for everything there is a season. And I really believe that the season of victory is coming. I really believe that. And so what we need to do with ourselves in this winter time of history, in this dark time of history, in this time of where the universe's light is at its lowest point in the sky, is we need to find that hope within ourselves. We need to create that hope. And I like to imagine, regardless of whether it's true or not, I like to imagine in my own personal mythology that in that darkness, primitive people started decorating a tree, started lighting candles to create that light themselves. That artificial, human-created hope, that artificial, human-created light in preparation for the real light to come. To reinforce their own selves, to reinforce each other in that darkness, to come together and celebrate and overcome that desolation around them, overcome that coldness around them, overcome that darkness. And I really believe that together we can ride this out, that together not only can we overcome the darkness, but we can embrace the new season that will be upon us. Because that season is coming. And we're making it come. Real life is making it come. Whoever perpetrated this horrible crime that we talk about every week on this show knows that their time is up. The truth always comes to light. And so we just need to ride out this darkness, create our own artificial light within ourselves, and wait for that reality to take shape. All right, what we're going to do now is what we do every week. We're going to take 10 seconds of silence to remember the victims of 9/11 and their families and all of the people who have died in the wars that followed 9/11. We're going to do that starting now. And that is 10 seconds. Kelly David is an activist with AE 9/11 Truth. She's involved with a number of different projects and brings some great insight to the table. And I'm happy to have her on this show for the first time. Kelly, thanks for coming on the show.
Oh, thanks for having me, Andy.
So tell the audience a little bit more about yourself. Who are you? How did you wake up to 9/11 Truth? What prompted you to start speaking out about it?
Okay, well, I always was a little concerned with the official story right from the very beginning, but I had other things on my mind. And a friend of mine told me to watch a documentary, and I had watched parts of it. And then, the obsession started after that, and then I just couldn't get enough. information, couldn't stop researching, and that's basically how it started. And then I was just annoyed that no one else realized, no one seemed to care, and I just felt I had to do something.
That's amazing. So you said you had problems with it from the very start, and it's funny because I think back to myself, and I always kind of hold people or use myself as a yardstick when I listen to other people. I think we all do that, and just kind of gauge how different our reactions are. I did not have a problem. I was just a regular brainwashed sheeple, like so many other people. It actually took somebody sneaking a video into a joke website for me to even look at any of this any differently. But you had problems from the start. What kind of problems did you have from the start about the official story?
Well, mostly because at a young age, I always had problems with government stories. It started when I was 14 years old, and I started researching the JFK assassination. So I always was very, depending on what it was, I always would just wonder, but I didn't really have a lot of interest in a lot of things. So right from the very beginning, it just didn't seem possible. The first thing I thought was there's no way they didn't get at least wind of this. And that was one of the first things that I thought.
Right, so you were kind of in the LIHOP camp, and to explain to our audience what LIHOP means, LIHOP stands for Let It Happen on Purpose, and I think that's the first step for a lot of people. When you're thinking, wow, geez, there were so many blinking red lights before this, how did they not know this was going to happen? And I know, like, just comparing to myself again, when I started to open up to this idea that there could have been some form of complicity, I started thinking, okay, well, maybe they just were opportune. Maybe they just let it happen on purpose, and that's the first step for a lot of people. I think it's funny and amazing that you were researching the JFK assassination at 14. I don't know how many people were out there doing that at 14 years old and talking about that. So that's pretty good for being so awake. And I guess I just want to know, like, what made you start looking at the world so differently at such an early age?
Actually, it was a teacher that I had in 8th grade who was just teaching us about JFK, and he happened to just know that, it wasn't what they said it was, and he was really interested in it, and then I just became really interested in it, and then I just started reading every book there was about it.
See, that goes to show you, too, how much impact a single person can have, and they may not even know it. I mean, you're an important part of AE 9/11 Truth, and here you are with this very critical issue, right in the middle of it, right in the thick of things right now, but it was somebody so long ago talking about an entirely other issue that influenced you, and like I said with me, somebody put a video in a site where it didn't belong. You have no idea. I say this to the audience. You have no idea who you're waking up when you speak out. So don't think that things that you do don't have some kind of benefit, even if you don't see that benefit until later on, or even if you don't see it at all, because the seeds you plant now may not spring right in your immediate vision, right? You may not even have any idea what kind of reach you have, but that does not mean you don't have a reach. So it's important to speak out and just be yourself and get the information out there. And teachers have an important role in this too, because they can influence so many young people listening to them, and I'd be hard pressed to find a teacher talking about this kind of stuff now. At least I think it would be, and at least so openly. I remember though certain teachers would talk kind of openly about this kind of stuff too growing up. I don't know how much times have changed since then. Now, for the topic of 9/11 Truth, and with the for when you started to wake up with it, what was the most convincing evidence for you of the controlled demolition? What made you start looking towards AE 9/11 Truth as the organization with which to contribute your time?
Well, it was obviously at Building 7, and you don't really need to know much about physics or any of that you just need to look at it, and that's what really started it for me. And I realized that I felt that AE 9/11 Truth was the way to go, because they took a more conservative approach to things, and they were able to get more people to listen to them because they weren't pointing fingers. They weren't going off into other directions about different things. They were just saying, buildings cannot collapse this way. That's it. We just need to find out what really happened. And I thought that was the smart way to go to getting people to realize and getting more people to wake up.
Right, and that is the message that I try to push on this show each week. There's so many people with so many different theories about who was behind it and what the exact truth is behind the motivation for the attacks, the real motivation. However, what unifies it all is the science and the fact that somebody can't watch Building 7 falling and intellectually honestly say to themselves that fire caused that to happen. It just takes a huge stretch of imagination to think that something like that could be true. It can't be true because it never happened before or after that day. And so that's the evidence that we have to go charging forward with as a movement. We need to be pointing to the information that AE 9/11 Truth brings to the table and simply call for a new investigation of the destruction. And you and I know that once you start looking at this, I remember being in an audience with Richard. This is before I even joined AE 9/11 Truth, shortly before it. I saw Richard speak a bunch of times before, but I had asked, how long would it take for somebody to set this up? And he said, months. Take months to do it. And I asked it again, and he kind of reiterated, but it was kind of like sinking into my head, like, okay, well, if it took months for that to happen, obviously there had to have been some prior knowledge. I'm thinking this in my mind because you can't just set something like that up in one morning with the Twin Tower event taking place next door. So right there, Building 7 is the gateway to a greater understanding of the event. So you realize that, a lot of people realize that, and more people are waking up to that now and starting to just focus on Building 7 and demanding answers about that. All right, let's talk about some topics that we don't really get into very deep on this show. This is a very special Christmas episode, folks. We're going to be we're going to take a little bit of break from the hard evidence, the molten metal, the free fall, from the petitioning of certain prosecutors' offices and controversies in Canada and things like that this week. We're just going to be talking about some very basic issues related to 9/11 Truth, of course, and being awake to this evidence, but also to the holiday, to sort of just taking a breather and being casual. So these are topics that are very important to this audience, and I want to get your take on these, Kelly. For you, just being awake, dealing with the society as a normal person who is our age, we're the same age here. For us, the post 9/11 world has been our entire adult lives. How do you see the current situation for people who know about this controlled demolition evidence, and what are some of the best ways that you think you would advise people to cope with it if they're just waking up to it now and they're looking around freaking out saying, oh my God, nobody is acknowledging this, I feel like I'm alone?
I feel like the best way to cope with it is to just do something about it. I mean, if you feel that strongly about it, you're going to step up, do something about it. It does make you feel better, and then you could reach out to other people like yourself.
Exactly. Go ahead.
You're not alone then. You have people to talk to about this. It's like when someone said one time, it's like Alcoholics Anonymous. Once you find each other, you don't want to leave, and, it's nice to be around someone that just gets it.
Right, you're right. And you can, when you're around like-minded people, it's like finding that secret island somewhere where you belong. But also too, I've always kind of equated it with being a superhero, or being what's that movie? The X-Men, when they find one of each other. People are born mutants. And I don't like using these terms to talk about the cause, because it is about being awake, and it's about knowing something and acknowledging reality when the rest of society can't do that. But when you find other people like you, it's almost like you're finding somebody in the same secret society as you or something, almost like they should know the secret handshake, because there's an instant brotherhood with them and an instant camaraderie. And I know this because I talk to a lot of strangers in this movement for stuff I do, and it's immediately like I've known them for the past couple of years, and they are always happy to hear from me. They're always happy to be a part of things. And I can say to the audience, you're going to feel that way too if you just speak out, if you just start doing something. And there's nothing wrong with being different. Now, how do you deal with, though, when you start speaking out, there might not be people around you that are as into the topic. Either they don't want to see the evidence, they don't want to acknowledge it, or even if they do see it, they don't really care. We run into a lot of that in society too. what would be your advice on coping with frustration that comes with being the only person in your immediate vicinity that cares about this issue, which a lot of people are finding themselves in?
Yeah. Well, I don't really know exactly what's the best way to cope with it, because it is frustrating, and you just have to find different ways to deal with it, different ways to talk to people, figure out what works. And sometimes you'll think, okay, they're not even listening to me, and it turns out later on they actually do. It just sticks with some people, and you just can't get frustrated about it because there's only so much you can do, and that's how I feel. There's only so much I can do, and I'm just going to do what I can do, and hopefully I can wake up as many people as I can.
Right. Nobody is going to do this on their own. I agree with you. And I think a lot of people, it's depending on their, I guess it depends on their personality. I've always sort of been like, we're talking about Christmas. What's that Chevy Chase movie, Christmas Vacation? The main character there always feels like he's going to do this big monumental thing and create these grand plans that he can't live up to. I've always been that Clark Griswold type, and maybe I overplan and I'm going to do this big thing, and then it doesn't fall apart, but it just maybe I've overplanned something, or I've planned something too big for what I could do on my own or do right now, and so that's not necessarily always a good thing. We got to just be able to stick to what you yourself can accomplish. And again, nobody is going to win this on their own. You got to think of it almost like it's a war, and it's not a violent war. It's not people shooting at each other. It's people exchanging words. It's people exchanging information. You're trying to bring it to as many people as possible. But you yourself are not alone. You have an entire fellow army with you out there in the field, and you play your part, they play their part, and together we bring this truth to light. That's what a movement is all about. And so I say that to the audience. Don't feel frustrated, because there's been a lot accomplished, and there's a lot more that will be accomplished. You're doing the best that you can. And for a lot of folks, I've been in it since 2006. People have been in it for various years. Some people have been in it since like the very beginning, like 2002. I'm amazed. If you're a soldier in a regular war, you have tours and you take breaks. For people who are in the fight in 9/11 Truth, a lot of times they may not even take a break. It may not stop for them. There's nothing wrong with taking breaks too if you feel that you need it, but you get to set your own agenda and decide how you are going to fight. I guess that's why the superhero analogy might come in handy here, because you're setting your own pace here. You're not taking orders, you are creating them, and you're being the person out there, the vigilante for information, for truth, who's going to bring it to everybody around you. So you basically are the boss, is what I'm trying to say. All right, now we're talking about Christmas this week. It's my favorite holiday. I'm kidding about that, of course. But it's coming, and people have to deal with things like their family, and depending on the family situation, and they're being awake to this, talking about the evidence all the time, bringing the truth about what happened in the Twin Towers and Building 7 to people in their spare time. A lot of times, you come back with family who may not necessarily be awake to this, people who may be even hostile to you about this, because they know this is what you're doing, and so they're going to try to pick a fight. This can happen. So I want to hear your take on that. How should people handle that kind of situation?
Well, I always feel that humor seems to work the best with people. And there are going to be family members who are just going to give you a hard time about it, and there's really not much you can do about it, and just it's another frustrating thing that you just have to deal with. I mean, most of my family isn't awake to it. I have one sister who is, but the rest of them are not. And, I'm lucky, that I have good parents, because they don't really argue with me about it much, and they just don't agree with me. And, they're happy for what I do, and they're happy that I'm happy, but, that's just not how they feel, and they just stay out of it. And it's frustrating, but, there really isn't anything I can do. I've tried, so there's not much more I can do about that.
Right. And the thing is, too, folks, I think we've learned as we've gone along here, especially once the passion is kind of gone from initially waking up to this, you kind of realize what the situation is. I've gotten to the point now where I feel sorry for people, and it's really hard for me to get mad. Not saying I can't have my moments now, but overall speaking, I kind of look at the general public like they're victims of this crime just as much as the people who died, because even though they didn't die that day, even though their lives have been spared, their lives still have been altered, and now these walls have been thrown up between people and our society, and they have to face the very real situation that they were lied to about that day. And a lot of people have so much emotionally invested in this crime, in this fake story about what happened on 9/11. And I'm not just talking about your regular rank and file person who wants to watch Fox News or MSNBC and feel like they've picked a side in the political establishment, and that what their country is doing is great, and that we're at the top of the world here, and is comfortable in that crafted reality that was made for them. I'm talking about people who went off to war, people who lost limbs. I remember a few years ago, I worked at a job, and this was right around Christmas time too of that year. And a girl who was working there was talking. I overheard her talking to somebody about her boyfriend that had come back from Iraq, and how she was excited to see him, and she's talking very jovially about him being back and the stuff they're doing, and they were going to go out that night. And then she started talking about how he gets embarrassed because she has to cut his meat for him, and apparently he had been injured there in Iraq and had suffered some kind of, I don't really even fully know the extent of his injuries, but it affected his ability to cut food. He may even lost some fingers. It was a roadside bomb is what he got hit with, so he may even lost a limb. I didn't really get too personal with it, but I think about that now. Somebody who went and made that kind of a sacrifice for what they thought was they're defending their country, at least defending the interests of their country, it's going to be a harder sell to them, and it's a harder truth for them to swallow when this is presented. And we need to understand that as a movement, is that a lot of people have much invested in this official story, mentally, spiritually, even physically, for soldiers who have lost limbs, or even parents who have lost their loved ones in these wars. They don't want to think it was over a lie. They don't want to think that there's anything wrong with the official story, and that's just the situation that we have to deal with. We talk a lot on this show about the difference between a problem and a situation. A problem is something you can do something about. A situation is something that just is, and you got to work around. And this is kind of a combination of a problem and a situation. I think it can be overcome, but it is a pretty big obstacle, this cognitive dissonance. And this is the fuel of the cognitive dissonance, is that people have so much invested in the last 11 years in this official story, they are not going to want to let it go. Do you have anything to add to that?
No, you're exactly right. It's sad, and that's exactly how they're going to feel. They don't want to think for a second that all of this has happened to them or to their family members over a lie. They want to feel that it was for something good, that they were defending their country. That's a lot harder.
Right, and I try to put myself in their position. I try to say, okay, if that were me, what would I do with this? And I don't know if I would be any different. I mean, I didn't go off and join the Army after 9/11. I almost joined the Navy. Interesting story there, and an interesting story into why I didn't. Maybe I'll go into that some other time. But I didn't go off and do that, and so it's hard for me to put myself in that position. And I try to think, okay, what would I do with that reality? What would I make of that? And that's very hard for folks to kind of make that jump, because they figure they've already made that sacrifice. Why should they have to sacrifice the lie? Why should they have to sacrifice the reality that was created for them to make even more of a sacrifice by speaking out for this? And I commend the people that are doing it, the people who, like the veteran who called C-SPAN and said he stands with the over 2,000 building experts demanding a real investigation of 9/11. Now, this person, I'm not sure if he lost any limbs or anything like that, but they still made a sacrifice and sacrificed their time, and they put their prestige on the line as being a soldier. So those are the people that should be commended. And I remember listening to a guy speak, and he wasn't even talking about 9/11 or anything like that. He was just simply talking about
how to deal with veterans and PTSD when they come home. And he said that, one good thing we do in the Army is that we tell people, how great they are, we honor them. And I started thinking in terms of 9/11 truth at the time, what are we doing to honor the soldiers there? Because they're on the one side, they're hearing that they're heroes, they're great, and on the other side, they're not being told that they're bad or anything. It's just that, what are they being told? And that's tough, because it is tough, because when you realize this reality, and then you know the science of the building's destruction, and you realize that they were lied to, it's hard to look at the situation and say that anybody is a hero out of that. But we need to take that into account and realize that we need to reinforce people's egos, for lack of a better word. We have to make them know that they are valued, and that's a challenge I think we need to face in this movement. We need to make the message more positive. I'm not sure. I mean, what do you think of that? I mean, is there any way to make this message more positive one for people to want to embrace?
Yeah, I don't know if that's possible, but you're right. I mean, it is so difficult for them. It has to be incredible, and I do commend anyone that will step up and realize and actually speak out about it, like the C-SPAN caller. That's really difficult.
Right. I don't know. I think the fact that people are waking up and speaking out about it is positive, and maybe that makes me different from most people. I see different things as being positive. It's funny, as some people will think about a country like the United States, and they'll think about all the wars we won and think of that as like the accomplishments. But when I think about a country, I think about a culture. I think about what is it invented? Like inventing the airplane or the peanut or whatever. What has it contributed to the world? And even in the wars, I don't look at like the victory of the wars. What did it accomplish? Did it accomplish anything? And see, that's not the main thing. But see, we get brought up in the society thinking that it is. We look at this as some kind of heroic thing that happened. Even though war really is nothing, there's really nothing heroic about war, especially at the political level, because war is a representation of a breakdown of strategy, a breakdown of diplomacy. It's a representation of failure, that you couldn't make things work in a normal diplomatic way, so you had to resort to pushing and shoving and punching, with tanks and bombs. But and so I guess it's a matter of changing how we look at the world. I'm not saying everybody needs to look at the world exactly like I myself do, but maybe look at it from a different light. Try to look at things from each other's point of view, and see what the view is from there. And we need more of that. And that's what my New Year's resolution is going to be for this year. I mean, I don't really like being the person that talks about New Year's resolutions. I always think it's kind of hokey and silly when people do that, and I usually turn them off, but I'm doing it now. I love it when I do the things that I hate people doing. Hypocrisy is okay sometimes. When it's positive, when you're doing the positive thing, hypocrisy is okay. But that's what we need to do, is we need to look at things from each other's point of view. Now, AE 9/11 Truth. This organization's been around for quite a long time. It doesn't seem like a long time, but I'm getting kind of old, and time kind of speeds up for me. But it's been around since the late 2000s and the late aughties of 2000, and we've accomplished a lot. Now, over the past year, we've done a number of things. What do you see as our biggest accomplishments over the last year?
Besides reaching 2,000 architects and engineers, that was the big thing, was the Rethink ads. I think that was a major accomplishment. We never raised that much money before for something that was all over the world. I think those are probably the two biggest things that AE did in this year.
Right, and for our audience, if you're listening for the first time, Rethink 9/11 campaign was a transnational global awareness campaign where we had ads in cities all around the world. We had bus ads in Ottawa, we had subway ads, we had taxi top ads in different cities, and of course we had a giant billboard in Times Square asking New Yorkers if they know about the third tower that fell on September 11th. So again, reinforcing the message of simply focusing on the Twin Tower, or excuse me, focusing on Building 7 and getting people to question, why did that building fall down when it shouldn't have? And it was a big deal. We covered it here on the show. One of my shows is just the audio from the rally that took place outside of the billboard on the anniversary of September 11th this year, and it got media coverage, and a lot of people now are waking up to it. So yeah, you were absolutely right, Kelly. And then the number of architects and engineers that have signed the petition, we broke the 2,000 barrier. And that is a big deal because it's so hard to get the message to people in the first place, that the fact that so many people are willing to look at the evidence to begin with and then put their name on the petition and stand with the other thousands of architects and engineers and thousands of quote-unquote others like myself and yourself, who are not building experts but simply people who have common sense and discernment and don't lie to themselves. The fact that they're willing to put their name out there is a big deal, and they broke the 2,000 mark. So there's a lot to celebrate over this year. If AE 9/11 Truth ceased to exist right now, somehow we just got the phone call and said it was all over, what do you think the biggest accomplishment of AE 9/11 Truth would be? What do you think its legacy would be in history?
I don't know. Probably the fact that AE was able to get so many people, so many building professionals and architects, engineers to sign the petition, and all the other supporters. I mean, it is the biggest 9/11 truth group, and was able to get all the, everyone to come together and all the different projects we've done. Other than that, I can't imagine, what else it would be.
Right, but we've done so much, and you're right, to wake up all of those people and can say, well, you got all those building experts, so what? Well, think of it this way, folks. If the official story, if the big lie were a person, what we've managed to do is put a big jagged scar across its face, because this has now been imprinted in people's minds, the realization of Building 7. It took so long to get the media to acknowledge the destruction of this building. And, I remember one thing that woke me up. I did hear somebody mention about Building 7 on the internet, and they had Professor Stephen Jones come on Tucker Carlson's show. And apparently they had asked Stephen Jones before the program what video clips they wanted him to play, and he said, I just want the video of Building 7 falling to be played. And during the interview, they wouldn't play it. He asked them repeatedly to roll the footage of Building 7 falling, and they wouldn't play it. And that is suspicious. All right, the media did not want to touch that. And I would love to see C-SPAN and Washington Journal just for the 6 seconds or 6.5 seconds that it takes for that building to fall down on TV to just roll that video, maybe on next year's 9/11 anniversary. But they won't do it. They won't show it happening because they don't want people seeing that video falling. And again, I don't know of any situation in history in which we, the people, we Americans, or even in the world, I mean, forget just America, let's look at the world, where people have been awake to something like this so fast after it happened and then have to do something about it. And where it's so obvious, where you don't even need technical skills, all you got to do is roll the footage of that building falling, and people instantly get it. A lot of them do. Even if they don't want to admit it, they have concerns. And so, again, I mean, going back to what AE's legacy is, if it suddenly ceased to exist now, is that we've put this reality in people's minds. Building 7 has become as widely known as the Twin Towers, I would say, with the general public, and has become something that people rally under, to the point where if people call into C-SPAN and they ask about Building 7, whoever is being interviewed at the moment, whether it's some politician or some establishment defense and security bureaucrat, will immediately said, well, I don't think it's an inside job. Even though the caller never said anything about an inside job, they will immediately jump to that because they know that Building 7 is such a smoking gun. So what we've managed to do is graffiti the entire memory of this event that they've used to try to sell these wars to the general public with the reality, to remind people that it doesn't make any sense to remind people that they're being lied to, and now they can't use this as well as they have. They can try to, but it falls short. Now, Kelly, I feel like I'm monopolizing the time. You're very patient with me here. I tend to rattle off sometimes, but we've talked about the accomplishments of this year. What should we be doing in the following year? If you could just mobilize not just AE 9/11 Truth, but just the entire 9/11 Truth movement, everybody, what do you think should be the focus of people's action, attention, their concerns? What should they be doing better or more to try to get the message out there?
I just feel personally that we just need to just wake more people up. Just get enough people annoyed about it to actually try and do something. I feel like at this point, this is pretty much the only thing we can do. And the more people we have, the better chance we have to actually do something about it.
Right. So we need people. I agree. I see that as we need more people doing stuff. That's my personal view. I think that a lot of folks out there are waiting for somebody to tell them what to do, and that doesn't mean that they're sheep or that they need to be have orders barked at them or that there's any levels of authority within the 9/11 Truth movement. There isn't. Everybody's co-equals. But I think a lot of folks don't really know what to do with the situation. I've used the analogy before of walking into your home, late at night, or maybe you weren't expected to be home, and you walk in and you find your spouse in bed with another person when you flick the lights on. Now, how people react to that is going to be very different. Somebody might start punching the other person out that's in the room with them. Other people might just turn around and get in the car and go. I know you love my analogies here. We all respond differently to these kinds of situations, and there may not be some reactions may be better than others, but you can really see what's inside of a person by their initial reaction to something, to some kind of realization or truth being dropped on them after their whole worldview is changed in that way. And so a lot of folks don't really know what to do with the situation. I equate it with, you maybe know that your spouse is having an affair. You may have seen it from a distance, but your spouse don't know that you know. And that's what I say about a lot of people in military and in government who are awake to this, and they're kind of biding their time, playing along. They don't really know what to do with it. And I think for those of you out there who may be initiators, natural-born leaders, who have plans and say, I wish that somebody would do this, this particular action, would do this particular thing. Now is the time to start making it happen. Find those like-minded people and give them the plan and point them towards the direction of the battle. All right, because there is nobody else that's going to come along and do it but you, and you have to have that kind of mentality. You have to be willing to look at yourself in the mirror and say, it's up to me, and pretend that you're the only person who is awake to this, and everybody's relying on you to get the message out to them and wake them up. And when you think of it that way, when you take on that responsibility, first of all, it's an empowering feeling. But it does come with a lot of responsibility, and you have to be willing to take it on and be willing to be the go-to guy for your associates, for those who are agreeing to follow your commands, for when things go wrong, for when things don't work out as you planned them to. You got to be willing to adjust, but basically become the general in the battle. So, no, I mean, I agree with you. We do need more people, and we need more people stepping up and coming out of the shadows and doing whatever they can, even if they can only do it quietly. Even if you're that government bureaucrat who you're worried about your job, there's got to be something that you can do, something that you yourself know you can do to get the message out there, and do it quietly, do it discreetly, do it anonymously, but do it from your position to make a change on the world and make more people know about the situation. So, yeah, it's not even a question of just more people. It's more people speaking out, using the army that we have. Now, what do you think some of the biggest news stories involving AE 9/11 Truth have been over the years? Where has it made the most impact? Other than the Rethink ads, what other areas of existence. I guess that's a pretty big thing. Existence. Let me try to narrow that down a little bit. Uh, Not just existence, but in issues like, for instance, civil liberties, anti-war, the Constitution. What are some other issues that AE 9/11 Truth's information has impacted over the years by discussing the scientific evidence regarding the Twin Towers and Building 7?
Well, I don't think it was anything very specific. I think it's what AE does is a step towards people realizing what is going on with everything else, because it's all pretty much connected to each other. But yeah, I don't think it's that AE has done anything specific, but I just think it's part of the process. We're just a step in that direction for more people to realize what's going on. And
well, it's Bernie Suarez who used to host this show with me, said that AE 9/11 Truth is the scientific what is that in police? Police investigation, something like the forensics lab of the 9/11 Truth movement. And so AE 9/11 Truth is a leader because everybody can unite under the science, but it's also just one division as well. And so it's the proof. It's the thing that you point to when you're saying, well, I shouldn't have to give up my liberties under the National Defense Authorization Act. It's the thing that you point to when you say, well, no, I don't think that we should attack this country right now because a lot of this is still based on 9/11. And regarding 9/11, look at this giant building falling in 6.5 seconds. That doesn't make any sense. And so basically, it is the forensics lab of every other issue facing us right now in this post-9/11 world. And that is very important because it's the backbone. It's kind of like math. All right, for a lot of different sciences, you have to have mathematics, astronomy, physics. They all have some kind of aspect of math as their basis. And so unless you learn that foundation, unless you start with that basic foundation of 1 + 1 = 2, and learn your multiplication tables and move up, you can't do these other things. You can't get into these more advanced areas of study. And so Building 7, AE 9/11 Truth, Richard Gage's presentations, these are the basic math for a greater understanding of not just 9/11, but our world. Because when you wake up to 9/11, you wake up to all these other things that are taking place in the world. And I'm not going to get off into them. I'm not going to discuss them because people need to make their own realizations, need to draw their own conclusions. But one thing we should all be able to agree on is that the laws of physics apply every single day, and that Building 7's destruction could only be possible if pre-planned explosives were used. Or at the very least, it needs a new investigation. I'd settle for that from the skeptics listening right now. If you can just agree that it's weird and it should be investigated further. And that's really where we need society to be. Now, Kelly, do you have any other thoughts about this, about the achievements of this year? Anything you want our audience to know about AE 9/11 Truth, things that are be coming in the next year? What do you know? What is being planned for 2014?
For now, we're still going to continue to do the Rethink ad campaigns, just a few a year. We're going to try to push for more legal accountability, but that's going to be a very difficult task. So basically, it's pretty much we're going to continue to try to get more petition signers, the usual. And there's nothing that's 100% definite at the moment, just going back and forth with some ideas. But definitely we're going to continue with the Rethink ads and some different types of legal pursuits.
Absolutely. And folks, you make up the 2014 year of AE 9/11 Truth. Okay, you can volunteer with AE 9/11 Truth, but even if you don't have time to formally volunteer, you can still do things on your own. You can print out pamphlets from the website. You can get the DVDs. You can hand them out. You can talk about them at your Christmas parties. Have the loud conversations. All right, go on the subway, talk to your friend about Building 7, and make sure everybody can hear you. Be the loudmouth that makes somebody look away from their newspaper or their book and turn their eyes in your direction and sit and think, this guy is talking about something interesting, or I've heard people talk about this before, let me hear this guy's take. Because the more you talk about it, the more you speak out, the more bold you are with this topic and more unapologetic. That's important too. Don't let them guilt you. Don't let them try to put ideas in your head that it's somehow disrespectful to talk about physics and reality, and that a mass murder investigation is sacred, and that you don't point the finger at any party other than who your government told you to. All right, this is not like that. You have absolutely every right to speak out about it and speak about it boldly, because it is the truth. This is the reality. This is what happened on that day. So a lot of what's coming up in the next year relies on you. The success of the movement in general relies on you to just get out there, find your voice, find that initiator, find that leader inside you, and motivate others. Do whatever you can. And I'm going to tell you right now, you will get more confidence as you do this. I mean, I listened to the first episodes of this show and I cringe hearing myself. I'm stepping all over, or I'm stepping lightly, worrying about how I sound and all this. Now I don't care. I'm just shooting off from the hip. All right, that's what happens to you as you speak out, is that you just get better at it. And I hope this inspires you all to just do whatever you can, make the next year the year that people everywhere woke up to this reality. Kelly, I appreciate you coming on and kind of joining in this dialogue with me. I sort of feel like you're my shrink. You're just kind of letting me talk here and lay on the couch and throw out all of this work. That's why I wanted to bring you on. We work good together here. But yeah. Thank you for coming on the show. It's been enjoyable, and I'm glad that we were able to have this discussion.
Thanks for listening. Remember, you can hear this program every Thursday night on No Lies Radio at 10 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Pacific. You can also download this show by going to 911freefall.com. This is Andy Steele saying have a great week and Merry Christmas.